All right, it's 7:05. Gonna go ahead and get the ball rolling. Thank everybody for coming out to Free Game. Got a very special edition of Free Game tonight. We're talking about historically Black colleges, universities, and we got some special guests with us. The owners and proprietors of HBCU Drip are here. Before we get them to introduce themselves, we get our go-to panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start off with who we want to start with. Let's go. Is bruh listening right now? Go first, bruh. What's your name, bruh?
Bruh might be making a sandwich.
Antoine Freeman, former Chippendale, current co-owner of the foundation.
Like making my job hard, man. I always got to edit out every time Hutch say something, man. go for it, Pell.
Pell, I'm the creative director over at the foundation.
Ari.
Ari Langsdorff, co-founder, foundation.
Jewish welfare.
James is bagman.
Miss Sharifa.
Sharifa Murdoch, co-founder of Liberty Fashion and Lifestyle Fairs, owner of Envision Fest. Yeah.
Dope. Jay, go for
it. James Whitner, owner of the Whitaker Group. Thank you guys for investing your time with us.
No doubt. My name is David Butler. I handle community for the Whitaker Group. And, without further ado, I'll allow our special guest for tonight to introduce themselves.
Drip.
Okay, I'll go first. All right, my name is Cameron Lod, current student at Winston-Salem State University, one of two owners of HBCU Drip. What else can I say? From a small town in North Carolina, Rayford, right beside Fayetteville. If you heard of it before. And, I'm just glad to be here.
No doubt.
All right, guys. I'm Carissa Newsom. I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I am a rising senior at Winston-Salem State. I have many passions and talents, and I'm just glad to be here and be a part of this chat right now.
No doubt. Oh man, it's a very special episode for me, especially also as a Winston alum to have some young Rams in here to chat with y'all. But I want to kick it off by asking y'all, what made y'all choose a historical Black school?
Let's introduce some more HBCU people here. We got them.
For sure.
I'm looking across the screen. I invited Frank because he went to Atlanta Clark. I almost said A&T.
I'm proudly Norfolk State University there too.
I did not know that. I didn't know that. Okay.
Man.
Hey, drop your school in the chat. You went to HBCU, drop it in the chat. Man, listen. Tennessee State in the building.
Hudge dropped out on the first day, man.
Cut it out, James.
Okay, we got HU in here, Howard's in here, FAMU's in here.
Howard,
A&T is in here.
Man, y'all gonna stop shaming my white university.
Okay, it's deep in here. The love is deep. That's what we like to see.
That's good. Go ahead, Dave. You can take it over from
Hampton. Got you for sure. Hey. So we got it's a lot of love in the room. It's a lot of family in the room, man. But for Cam and Carissa, either one of y'all can answer. What made y'all choose a historically Black?
I'll go. You can go first. Okay. You go ahead.
All right. What made me choose HBCU? My dad, he went to Livingstone College for his undergrad, and then he went on to go to Yale University. And every year we go to Yale, and it's like a different environment, out there. It's like the people aren't friendly at all, No one was saying hey to me. When I was a senior in high school, I had a tour at UConn University, and no one said hey or what's up to me. Why would I want to go to the school? So then I got a letter about Winston-Salem, and I was like, I don't know. So my parents took me to the tour, and immediately I knew that, you know, I was going to fit in here. Like, I felt the love. I felt it was just a different feeling walking onto that campus. It felt like I belonged there. So that's why I chose WSSU.
Okay, I'll go. Well, for me, my story is a little different. I've always been around Winston's culture and everything because my brother and my sister went to Winston. My brother was first, then my sister, and just going to I just go to homecoming with them every year. When they would move in, Winston has this week called Ramdition where all the freshmen can stay on campus for a whole week prior to class starting the week after that, and at the end of that week, they would have a cookout, a family and friends cookout. And I will always go up there with them, well, of course, when they were freshmen, going into their freshman year on campus. But I would just see the environment, and just from there, my brother and sister, they left a legacy behind because my brother was involved in the SGA. He basically got connections with higher people on campus that could look out. And I knew that if I went there, then I would have somebody look over for me and just people to use as my resource, because it's kind of on being on campus, it's kind of hard to get somebody to look out for you, especially in offices like financial aid, just offices like that. But just having a plug on campus, it was clutch. So that was really my main reason for choosing to go to the school. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have all these connections when I get on campus. I'm gonna be straight. So went there, automatically fell in love with it. I never had any doubt about choosing the school. It was always my number one choice. That's pretty much it.
No doubt. So how did y'all meet in terms of getting ready to start the page? How'd y'all link up?
You want to tell them or?
Yeah, I'll tell them. Well, since me and Cam are basically from the same place, I just always follow him on social media. I was like, oh God, this guy can dress, he has style. So we get on campus, and this is when we start, trying to collab with each other, take pictures with each other, and come up with ideas. Me and Cam always came up with ideas, but that just never started light of day. But anyways, I think it was sophomore year, Cam.
Yeah, it was spring semester.
Yeah, spring semester of sophomore year, we created a fashion page. It was called Chosen by Style, and it was basically
that was fall semester. Fall semester.
Fall semester.
Yeah, that was
fall
sophomore
year. Yeah, we created a fashion page called Chosen by Style, and it just highlighted, fashion from our favorite influencers, and it had a cool little aesthetic going on. And it was getting some traffic through it, but not as much as we wanted. So one day Cam had called me up, and HBCU drip was made.
Yep. And I got the inspiration really from the page Leaf Fits. I don't know if anybody else follows that page, but they basically post NBA players just coming through the tunnel with outfits on. They may just be anywhere. It's just a fashion page geared towards geared for NBA players. And I just love the page and just seeing it on my timeline. I'm thinking why is anything like this for HBCUs? This is where fashion is really bred at. This is where we basically get to this is basically our prom. So I'm thinking why has it never ever been an idea? So I knew automatically as soon as I told her, I was like, this gonna be it. So I'm telling her the whole time we good, just be consistent, posting new content every day, just being consistent. That was the main key. And it just really feels like we fast forwarded here for real, and it's grown to way past what we thought. We never thought we were gonna be making merch for the page. We never thought we was gonna build a website for it. We really just did it for HBCU students to be able to just a safe haven for students, just to come and meet other students that have the same interests as them, interested in clothes, fashion, music. And that's why we kind of put a little statement together which basically describes our page, and it's basically the intersection for fashion and culture. That's where it is at HBCUs.
No doubt. For and speaking of that in terms of a lot of trends and stuff, I guess to pivot to some of the other folks on the panel. Also, if y'all got questions, drop them in the chat. We just changed the settings on the chat, so everything's going straight to the host. If you got a question, ask a question in the chat. We'll call on you, unmute you, so you can go ahead and get your question asked. But in terms of pivoting to some of our folks that work in the fashion industry on the call, how do y'all see that translation? What has been y'all's experience in seeing how trends translate from grassroots movements like what HBCU Drip has into moving into like retail spaces or the trade show space? How do you guys see that connection between the two?
I mean, I think youth culture, you got to follow the marketplace, right? And you got to always look at what the kid and understand what each generation of kids is bringing to the marketplace and how they're coming in and looking to change or reinvent or add new. So I think for me, I've always focused on all young Black youth. Like I used to like to say I live it, see it, but I guess I don't live the same way I used to. So now it's like through social, right? Like so when shit, who hit us on HBCU Drip from our side? It was
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff.
Jeff.
When Jeff hit us and was like, "Yo, you want to do this?" And I looked, I was like laughing, like, "Hell yeah, it makes sense." Like to your point, that was a setup question, Dave. Hell yeah, it informs. Hell yeah, it informs the marketplace, and we all know it.
A little few alley oops. Anybody else want to chime in on that point? Nobody. Y'all can leave me hanging like that. Don't nobody want to say nothing.
I think James really summed it up. You know, you have to go where the energy is at. Even if you look at what was going on with the protests, it came from younger energy, right? So I'm no longer in the middle of it. I'm not wearing it. I'm watching and I'm pulling ideas and I'm talking to younger people and getting ideas and taking it in and putting it through my filter of what I know how to do. But if I just went by what I wanted or what I saw, it would be totally different from what's happening on that campus. So I think that's really where it happens. And they have a network amongst themselves, you know, so you have to, this is the future. If you're not looking towards the future, you definitely falling on the bullshit in the past.
Well, yeah, and shit, y'all can tell me because y'all go to HB. I went to college, right? But obviously, it's a lot of different experience when 98% of the campus is Black, right? So I think probably 15% of my campus was Black, and that 15% was trying to get fly. So I can't imagine the level of individuality that happens at HBCUs. Y'all could speak on that individuality better than I can because I wasn't there. So I guess for y'all, the people who attended HBCUs, tell me about the pressure y'all feel coming out as freshmen, sophomore, to keep up, to make sure that, you know, obviously there's already an immense amount of pressure to fit in when you're that age. I can't imagine how that looks on that campus. So y'all could talk about that some.
You're talking to us, right?
Yeah, anybody.
I'll speak on it. Okay. So this KJ from Social Status Tampa, but I went to FAM, and I can honestly say, like you just said, the whole, you know, the cultural, the clothing pieces coming from Tampa, you know, just being introduced to so many different styles, being introduced to, you know, the DMV, you know, the whole Baltimore, DC, all those people, they got their own wave. You know, then you got Miami people. It was coming up wearing like Hollister and Abercrombie, and it was like, what the hell? Like, but they made it fly, you know. And then you got people from Chicago coming down. So it was a lot of pressure for sure, man. It honestly, it was like a fashion show every week, and then on Friday on the set. On the set, oh God, you better come right. If you don't come right, you might as well go home and try it again and come back. but it definitely was a lot of pressure, you know, socially, just meeting people and then just different. The bigger cities, you know, people naturally just have a lot more confidence. So, but I think that stuff rubbed off on me as well, man. Just being exposed to those different people. I think Chicago and DC, like their influence is heavy, like just the cultural influence. So for sure. Definitely. Yeah, I also feel like that's the crazy part about coming up with the idea that we came up with for the page, because it's just like it's so many creative people that come from different backgrounds, from different places, that are Black, that don't get the, you know what I'm saying, get the light of the day that they need, or like the light shine on them that they need. So HBCU Drip is a platform where they can get posted on there and seen from somebody to go to Texas A&M or another HBCU like Delaware State. Like, you just see people that you would have seen on Instagram in your life, or it would have been a small chance of seeing without it being a platform where everybody can just come together and just you can find a connection on the page. You could be trying to start a clothing line, you see somebody on the page that makes their clothes, DM them from seeing us posting. You know, it's just so many things that came about that were positive about us making a platform. And it kind of gets overwhelming at the time, because it's like we didn't expect this to be so crazy, but it's just like we're thankful for it every day, because it's like we just been growing and growing as individuals.
All right. So another question I'll ask is, obviously, once you lead a nostalgia of the HBCU, and obviously the individuality and the level of taste and all of those things is popping off the campus. One thing that we all know to be true is that HBCUs don't receive the same level of opportunities that white universities receive. So with some of y'all being in school as people who are participants on Free Game tonight, let me kind of shift some and ask, what do you guys think are some of the opportunities that you guys need to receive to kind of level the playing field to help you guys have a better start off in the world, at least from an entrepreneurial side, or from a fashion sneaker business entrepreneur perspective?
Wait, can I go? I guess.
Go for it.
All right. Well, I'm thinking. Well, my name is Joshua. I'm a graduating senior from West Palm Beach, Florida. I currently attend FAMU, and some of the things I noticed that a lot of people don't know is just a lot more financial responsibility, and just a lot more financial literacy. I noticed we don't have a lot of that. Currently, I have my own businesses, so I had to learn a lot of it on my own. Right now, I'm in an investment class, but most of the stuff I already knew outside of the class because I had to learn on my own. And that's just one of the things I noticed that we don't have as much at HBCUs.
And well, I honestly think at all universities, I think that's an all university thing. Most universities are teaching kids how to be employees. They're not teaching anyone how to be self-sufficient or personal finances or personal credit or managing your personal balance sheet. And as I think the Black community as a whole, that's something that collectively we don't talk about, managing our own personal balance sheets. We talk a lot about personal accountability, but not as it relates to finances. But I think that's something, I mean, obviously that's what this platform is for, to talk more about that. So if anybody got any questions along those lines, feel free to throw those into the chat and we can get into some of those things.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd add too, just from like a top down level, if you will, in terms of dealing with boards and institutions. So when I was at Winston, I served on I served in SGA 3 out of my 4 years. I graduated as student body president and sitting with the trustees, just being able to have more outside influence. And obviously I'm cheating, right? Because I know the work that we're doing at the Whitaker group as well, but we need more just kind of diversity of thought and bridging gaps between the young student population and the boards that serve these institutions. I think a lot of the thought processes that are used to run our institutions these days are a little bit dated and kind of teach a little bit more of assimilation as opposed to teaching you to forge your own path and giving you the tools to forge your own path. And I think that comes from the historical context of why the institutions were created. But I think as the world is starting to change, just trying to get us to update some of our systems and thought processes so that we can have, so that we can empower students a little bit more. Like I got my first opportunity because I literally had a professor, you know, that was like, yo, I want you to make merch for my media company. And that was based off of a hoodie I was wearing in class. And I didn't know nothing about screen print at the time. I didn't know nothing about graphic design or none of that. But he tossed me an opportunity. And I think we could institutionalize some of those opportunities. We would start to see, you know, better outcomes for our students and ultimately for our. But we had one question from Tariq Suber. So Tariq, if you want to ask your question now, you can go for it, bro.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Tariq still up? Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So
What's up, Tariq?
what's good, Mr. James? How you doing?
Mr. James.
Now, but anyway,
James, let's level set this shit right now. Mr. James.
Mr. James.
Mr. James.
But-
Damn.
I ain't making you feel old now, am I? But nah, I was just gonna ask everybody because I'm graduating UNCC probably in the spring. How was looking for job or employment, getting your own business or whatever the case may be set up after you graduated? I feel like when I went to UNCC, in the sense of I was kind of sold a pipe dream as far as opportunities and connections and this and that, being at a PWI. And granted now COVID has changed everything dramatically, but I just feel like, you know, it was because I was transferred in, I was a transfer student, not a freshman. I didn't really come in with a network of people like they do with UTOP. So basically when you're a transfer student, you're pretty much on your own and you kind of got to figure it out on your own. And I didn't like that. So I would just say, how did y'all, after you graduated in HBCU, how did y'all navigate like employment, everything like that?
I think for me, Jonathan McClain, brand specialist for Nike on Sneakers App. I think for me, I went to A&T, and I think the biggest thing for me that I learned is that no matter the size of the company, each experience, it leveraged me for the next experience as well. You know, so whether you look at a smaller company or a bigger company, the things that you learned at the smaller company will ultimately affect your roadmap, you know, to the bigger company. I've been working in social media for a while. And Nike, of course, is the biggest company I worked for, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those smaller companies that I worked at. And it got like, you know, just a ground-based tool of just, you know, just even how to even properly format a presentation, you know? So it's like, it's really the smaller things that you learn that propel you for, you know, where you want to go.
I agree with you, Jonathan. Like, I didn't go to HBCU. I didn't go to school at all. But what I do think is important that while you guys are in school is to do some sort of work somewhere. Try to do this a lot, because what happens is you go to school for 4 years, and as soon as you come out of school, you start looking for a job. They start asking what kind of experience you have, and you're like, I went to school, and that's not going to work. So if you're still in school, I would suggest you try to find some sort of job within the space or career that you like, and just start working for free if you got to. Because that's what I had to do in order for me to get the job that I had at the time.
I think I got a similar kind of story as well. I think so. I transferred from FAMU to FAU, Florida Atlantic in Boca, and like you said, I was a transfer student as well. So you know, you kind of lost in the sauce. You know, you don't really know anybody like that. But I think you just got to take it into your own hands, man. You gotta do your research. You gotta be diligent. You know, you gotta look up the companies, the type. So for me, I got my degree in urban design, which is, you know, branch of urban planning. So for me, like I literally Googled, you know, 30 plus firms in South Florida, and maybe I probably got maybe 15 responses from the 30, but then out of those 15, probably 2 or 3 that were like serious offers. You know, I mean, of course it took time, but that's what separates everybody. You know, the people that are willing to do stuff that nobody else wants to do. So, you know, if you just got to work hard and just go at it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was about to say, for me, my experience was a little different being connected on campus as I was. I actually was I wasn't looking for no job. I wasn't really looking for a job coming out of school because I was just burnt out from going so hard for 4 years. But
Right.
the lady who was running career services actually called my phone and told me that Coca-Cola was taking resumes and that they were looking for top students, and asked me if I wanted to, have my resume put into the pile. So it was literally just by building my network on campus and being active on campus that it afforded me my first job opportunity, and I didn't even have to look for it.
Yeah.
So I'm currently in that position now. I'm in the process of transferring from UNC Charlotte to Hampton University. And in transferring, just being able to persevere in not getting phone calls back and not wanting to give up on the process being difficult. I think getting in those rooms helps when you get on campus, need those different offices and things like that.
Got you. So it's basically just closed mouth don't get fed is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, man. You gotta create your own situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I just hate that. Like, I can only speak for UNCC. They don't really, and this is why I wish I went to a HBCU, because I feel like they utilize the talents on hand that is already presented at the school, where versus at UNCC, there's a lot of red tape. Let's say if you wanted to have an event or if you wanted to DJ an event. Yeah, so. But I still make stuff all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say no, man. It's any institution you go to, man. It's gonna be red tape, whatever you're trying to get done. It's red tape everywhere, and I mean that's a fact of life. Like people used to complain about standing in the financial aid line. I was like, have y'all ever heard of the DMV or the post office? Like,
right.
This is preparing you for life, yo. Like that's one of definitely one of the definitely. So I just got a message from Kayla. I'm not probably pronouncing that wrong. They said they had an initiative that they would like to share. Has to do with business investments for Black entrepreneurs. So if you would like to share that, the floor is yours. If you're still in here.
I'm still in here. I got out, but I'm back.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Kelly Vonnier. I'm a founder of a technology startup. I follow James, follow Free Game. I learned what he's been doing, and I thought it makes a lot of sense. My opportunity, I didn't go to a HBCU. I went to the University of Louisville, but a mentor that I met over there was someone who gave me so much opportunity that helped me get to what I was doing and cross the red tape, right? We're talking about red tape. We're talking about opportunities that are disproportionately distributed that a lot of young Black folks don't get. And so we started an initiative that to connect Black folks, young entrepreneurs, or just anyone who wants to build something or create something, to connect them with like more experienced people who have sold their company for a couple million and who have funding to put behind, right? One thing that we hear a lot is a lot of Black students or just young Black folks are mentored or over-mentored, and sometimes no one is writing a check or putting money behind them. And so I'm inviting anyone here who is working on something or working on something new to apply to our initiative. What we're doing is we're connecting you with a founder, and you would spend a year mentorship, 30 minutes, either virtually or one-on-one, helping you get to whatever goal that you have. Hacking their social network and bringing that social capital that they have, as well as financial capital, and giving it to you. Whoever the people who get selected, we have 10 spots. Whoever who gets selected gets a 25K investment if it's a business, or a 25K grant if it's not a business that is something that could grow. So I just wanted to share it out. The link is directtofounders.com. I'm gonna leave it down in the chat, and you can add it there. There's nothing we want. Like, I don't want anything. We just want, I was just given an opportunity. I live in Louisville. There's no Louisville that is away from Silicon Valley. And a founder who gave me an opportunity, who said, hey, let's listen to this Black boy, this young Black kid. Allowed the other folks around my city say, hey, let's listen to him. Let's see what he does. And gave me his social capital. So that's all I wanted. That's what I wanted to do. That's why I got in here. and just jumped in to do this. And so, but thank you. I will send a message to everyone. I'll send a message out there. It's direct to founders. It's a type form. It takes less than 2 minutes. You just apply and just tell us about yourself, and that's it.
Cool, Keller. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. We appreciate it. And I'm muted. Thank you, Keller. We appreciate that, man. The next question we got is from Isaac Abo. If he's got himself muted, see if we can get him to start his camera.
Oh, wait. Am I good? Can y'all see me?
Yeah, you're good. Yep.
How's everybody doing again?
Doing good, man. Appreciate you jumping back on. Good to see you again.
Oh, yeah, always. I mean, mine's more so just like a comment or a question. With like the millennials and Generation Z, like how they utilizing technology now to kind of impact or disrupt the fashion industry from afar, because you've got the whole do-it-yourself mentality, and now you can do direct to consumer. So with YouTube, you started a page just to kind of give a home for that culture on a HBCU, because again, that's just like, I went to Tennessee State and every day was just like a fashion show. Every day was like, yo, you gotta present yourself with confidence and a style. So I just figured, like, now, the young people nowadays, like technology, you can just research everything, learn everything, and now you don't necessarily have to deal with that barrier to entry with the major industry, with the major fashion industry. So like now it's just like, yo, you got an idea, like with the screenshot printing or whatever, you can just do it yourself. And then if you want to reach a consumer base or a client base, you can literally like define your market, build up your base through social media, and then you can just deal directly to your customers. So I just wanted to see what everybody's thoughts were on that.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Like I was saying before, I don't know if you're here when I was introducing myself, but we really just made a page just to post people that could dress really, just like fashion or like the same thing we like. So eventually, like right now, tomorrow, we're supposed to be dropping our merch, but like we didn't even think that was even gonna be a part of it, like, So definitely, we built the followers up first, built a little, basically a fan base of people that we can directly sell our stuff to. And it wasn't even in the thought process when we even thought about creating the page. So definitely.
Also, too, Cam, touch on how I mean, it's always like one of those things where we talking about it before we started the live and let everybody in, but we're basically talking about like how thrifting is like a big part of your style, and how, just using other opportunities and means, because, college is one of those opportunities where you either got a bunch of money or you got no money some of the time, you know what I'm saying, depending on when your refund check hit and all those different types of things. So you got to utilize a lot of different resources when you're there. So talk about how you've incorporated other opportunities, whether it is DIY or thrifting or whatever, into your style, and how y'all seen that flow out in y'all's audience as well.
Okay, yeah. So really, I've always been kind of like a cheap person when it came to like clothes and stuff like that, because just growing up with a single mom and stuff like that, like she won't buy no $200 pair of shoes. She'll give me that money to she'll buy $200 pair of, like, clothes before she do it with one pair of shoes. So like she kind of instilled that mentality into me. So when I started developing my own style in high school, like I had a strict parent, so she finally let me get an Instagram in like 9th grade, and from there I just started like taking nice pictures and just showing off my style, and I just put on the fit like every day, bro. So like through that, the mentality that my mom instilled into me, I started going to thrifts, because I've always liked the 90s style and just old school vintage wear. So like the thrift always had that. You go to the mall, you can't really find anything vintage in the mall. So just going to the thrifts, going to Goodwills, going to little consignment shops on the side, just incorporate into my style, and basically just show people that you don't have to buy a whole Gucci fit or a whole Louis Vuitton fit or just all this designer just to, have a nice style.
For sure, Carissa, what are your thoughts on using other opportunities to build up your style, and how have you seen that in y'all?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing with me. Coming into college, my parents weren't giving me, $1,000 a month, stuff like that. So me being me, the money I did get, that went towards clothes. Like my money went towards clothes, sadly. That's how much I loved it. But me and my friends would get an Uber and we would ride to like all the thrift stores around here. We would go to the mall, little boutiques around here, and it's like when you shop at a thrift store, it's like a one-of-one piece. Like nobody can't, get it from another store unless they buy it from you. So it's like every time you wear that specific, every time I wear a specific piece from the thrift store, it's like I always get compliments on it, or like where you get that from, stuff like that. It's just like a good feeling. So like I feel like a lot of people are asleep on thrift stores.
Yeah, for sure.
We got a question from somebody that I don't know what their actual name is, but the name is Traffic. You can go ahead and ask your question now.
How you doing, everybody? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
My actual name is Kaylin Summers. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. I attended University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And my question was, because I graduated in 2017, and people always ask me like about the experience, and it's always a unique experience aside from the rest of the schools here in Arkansas, which are mainly PWIs. And my question was, how do I convince the younger generation of high school students that come up? How do I convince them that HBCU is the place to be for expanding your creativity?
I think personally, just when it comes to selling people, I think college is a personal choice, right? And not having attended a HBCU myself, I think it's all about understanding the individual and what their needs are, and then figuring out ways to get them there, right? I always remember Black College Tour. Like, I remember when around the hood for summertime, I was always playing basketball, but everybody would go on the Black College Tour, and I was usually all the people who went on the Black College Tour. Most of those people end up at like black schools. Now, I talked out of turn a little bit, so let you talk to some of the people who actually went to HBCUs, but that just hit me, so I felt like I would jump in it a little bit.
Yeah, now to James's point, it's definitely an exposure thing, bro. And when you talk about giving back, and when you talk about making an impact, I always like to think of it specifically in this context when we're talking about schools in three ways. You got time, talent, and treasure. And you can spend a lot of your time and your talent getting tapped in with the younger people, letting them know what your experience was like there, signing up campus tours for them, because ultimately people's reality is only shaped by what they see. So, for me, I was one of those people that went on a Black College Tour. You know what I mean? It was called, down here, it was called Campus Connections. So between my junior and senior year, I had seen every Black school that's on the Eastern Seaboard. You know what I mean? From Alabama all the way through going up to Delaware State. You know what I mean? And that definitely helped shape my perspective. And it lets you see those environments, and you can picture yourself being there. So I mean, for me, I think it's an exposure thing. It's an exposure and letting people know about the opportunities. It's about changing narratives. It's about letting people, and then also to James's point, showing people how this can align and be a part of your future. But it just comes down to exposing kids, man, and letting them know that they got options and they got choices, and that it's okay to pick what fits you best. You know what I'm saying?
And then one more thing, and I don't know if y'all can hear me. My apologies for my voice trailing today. My power just went out at my house, so I'm working off of a backup generator. So if you can't hear me, I'll talk a little slow. To echo Dave's point, man, we really have to look at the whole HBCU system and figure out how to resource them so they are able to compete with some of the other universities around the country. Because to be honest, like outside of the key top 10 the Xaviers, the Morehouses, the Howards, those schools aren't even being resources at par with America's top 10 or top 15. So from a financial resource perspective, us as Black entrepreneurs, we first got to get some generations of Black wealth established so we can go back and help these schools build a legacy and have an infrastructure to be able to pull in the best Black talent, right? We gotta build up some level of Black pride, so we covet and hold things that are ours to a high standard, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And piggyback off of that, because the HBCU I went to is not one of the elite. It's not the big HBCUs like the A&Ts or the FAMUs. So in Arkansas, it kind of gets a bad rap, sort of say. So it's not one of the cool schools to come to. So it doesn't get that off bat. So that's another thing that, like, it's a struggle. But once you actually go to the school I went to, you realize how beneficial it is and how many connections you can make on a local level. Because it's one of the only schools in Arkansas where it's a nucleus of different, cities. Because we get a lot of people from Chicago, a lot of people from Memphis, DC, and the other schools don't really get that. So it's kind of hard to convince them, the benefits of coming to an HBCU, or specifically the HBCU I went to.
Go for it, Dave.
I got something for this one. What's up, guys? My name's Dave. I work for James. I went to Southern University, and my personal context was, there was a guy in my neighborhood. He ran the streetwear store in my neighborhood. His name was Corey Gilkey, and he went to Southern University. So when I got out of high school, an opportunity came up for me to go to college, and so it was an opportunity. It was something that I kind of wanted to do because I was influenced by him and I saw the success that he had. So I think about influencing people to kind of come to an HBCU. I think just on a micro level, it's just about telling your story and letting your testimony, your success, and your trajectory in life kind of speak for where you went and the pride in the school that you represent, right? And enough people continue to do that, then we do kind of get that swell back to our HBCUs. You see that Thon Maker, like his little brother, he made that decision to go to Howard, right? I think more of that is kind of what we need to see, is people telling their stories and having that conversation in different positions and say, hey, I went to an HBCU, and that kind of keeps that ball rolling.
For sure. Hey, Frank, as one of the top creatives in your industry, man, what are your thoughts on coming from HBCU and trying to get more creatives to go to HBCUs?
Oh no, absolutely. So Clark Atlanta, I was there 2003 to 2008, and I mean, it was just a special time. I think I don't think we'll ever get another time like that. It was a little bit of it was a special, time where we had Katrina going on, and it was just a melting pot. Like, all my roommates were from like DC, and again, like seeing these different styles from these different cities, these big cities, like you said, Chicago, Miami's, and Texas, and Cali. That's where I learned like fizz and all this like different culture, and it was a big melting pot. And I think the AUC is a little special because, you got three schools. It used to be four, but, Morris Brown was there. But, just to see the different walks of life, it definitely helped me in my career. And just knowing the music and the culture, my DC dudes put me on go-go, you know what I mean? Like, Texas dudes put me on screw, like it was just a special, special time. And I encourage it because, again, I think it you know, some of our facilities and it was just the grind, you know, it prepared me for the grind because it was, you know, we didn't have as many resources as you would, you know, in a different university. Again, we had the Friday market, man. You know, on Fridays, like if you could get on Spelman's campus, you know, on Fridays, it was the show, man. Everybody was dressed, you know. We were spending, our refund checks on BBC. Season 1 and season 2. You know, it's just
We might have lost him. He might have dropped out. Or is it?
It was a special time, and I'm super thankful for it.
For sure. I'm not sure. I was having some internet, some connectivity issues. But
Yeah, me
in
too.
terms
I
of
thought it was.
got you. So going back to Cam and Carissa, what is y'all's so y'all obviously started something, y'all had a fresh idea, and it was you know, something that y'all just kind of started and then it picked up. What's it been like, or how have you managed the growth of the platform, or what's that experience been like in growing something the way that y'all have?
You wanna go, Cam?
Well, yeah, I'll go. Well, personally, it kind of feels like it's been a long journey, but a short one at the same time. Because in the beginning, of course, when it started picking up, it was kind of getting overwhelming, just managing just daily life stuff that we had to do, and then like basically being on the page and being consistent with that. Excuse me. But after we got the hang of it, it just became natural. Like we just communicated. Communication is really key. Just texting each other, or we just got to get on the phone real quick to handle something. And then really once we started turning into the business side of it, getting we're not an LLC, but just making it a corporation and all that stuff. My dad helped me out with it because he just knows a lot about the business side of it. So we knew that eventually that the hype it was getting and stuff we were doing, like we were doing stuff with the Charlotte Hornets. We did an event with them, and just seeing that the buzz it was getting, we knew eventually that it would have to be, we have to have some legal stuff behind it. So just taking the time out to do all the business stuff, getting a copyright for our stuff, turn it into a corporation, all just the legal stuff, so that when opportunity comes our way, we can just go basically. We don't have to set a time to the side where it's like, okay, I don't have my license, or I don't have anything on legal paper yet, so I'll get back with you. We can do something on the spot. You hit us up, we ready. You know, if it's gonna help out both sides, we do whatever we can to just keep the page growing and just expanding.
Carissa, you got anything to add?
Like Cam said, it was very overwhelming. Still is now because it's, you know, it's rapidly growing like faster than it ever was.
For sure, and I think I like for some of our other.
The page, several pages.
No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. But yeah, like Cam said, it is very overwhelming. The page is still growing rapidly, faster than it ever has, you know. But the page is really, it's getting noticed to where it's a new page every day, like based off of our page. So that's how you know it's like we're doing something good, you know, it's steadily going somewhere.
Yeah.
For sure. And I like to pivot to some of the other panelists on the call and ask, like, they talked about a little bit about professionalization. Can you guys talk about that kind of in your past, and at what point you guys in your businesses went ahead and professionalized?
I think, are you asking us, Dave, or are you asking some of the younger guys? Damn, did I just call myself old?
I'm asking A little bit. But yeah, and I'm talking to y'all, talking to our seasoned fashion folks here.
Now you want to call me seasoned? You just call me old again.
Hey, that's for that skinny comment on my IG earlier.
No, I think man, did your heart look like it was jumping out of your shirt, bro? No, I think it's something that I realized early on. Like you have to be, and I say the same thing every week about intentional, right? Like, so once you get a business idea out of your head, the first thing you should do is trademark the name, look at your corporate structure, have a bank account, have a tax ID. Because to Cam's earlier point, if you're not prepared to be successful, then it's not that you won't succeed, but the hurdles to getting to some of the things you should get to gets a little more difficult. So for me, it was very early on. I'm the guy who got LLCs that I didn't use from 2002, just because that's just something that I pride myself on being prepared. So for hell, we still use Flavor Factory LLC today. Today, our Nike account is under Flavor Factory LLC, or one of our Nike accounts. So it was very early for us.
Anybody else got anything to add?
And Dave, let me take a second. We just got Chris Wright, and I can't say I'll let him do an intro for himself. Chris is a graduate of Atlanta Clark, also in a veteran of the industry. I think Sharifa's familiar with Chris. I think everybody else on the team is familiar with Chris. I'll let Chris jump in and grab the mic for a second here, since he's a HBCU alum.
What's up, everyone? Appreciate the intro, James. Wouldn't expect anything less of you. I'm not really sure where you guys left off specific to HBCUs, but I'll just take a couple of minutes just to kind of give you my my point of view and talk a little bit about my experience in attending Clark Atlanta. So for those of you I don't know, I'm originally from New York, born and raised, grew up in Harlem, and basketball was something that was huge to me growing up. Played in an era in New York where we were putting out cats every year in the league, and played with some pretty really good guys. And I thought I was good enough to eventually make it to the league, and that didn't actually happen. So coming out of high school, I went to junior college in California for a year. Went to Miracosta Junior College, which was in Oceanside, and I lived in Carlsbad. So I bring that to the forefront of the journey that got me to Atlanta, because I really want to kind of talk about the juxtaposition of transitioning from Harlem to Oceanside, California. So for anybody who's familiar with Harlem today, it's obviously been gentrified. You see all kind of different people running around Harlem, and it kind of reflects, how you pretty much perceive all of Manhattan. But in that era, Harlem was exclusively Black. If you saw white people in Harlem, they were either cops or drug addicts. So fast forward, my freshman year of college, I go to California to try and pursue this dream, and now I'm thrust in an environment where I'm around all white folks, and it was a culture shock for me. Add to that, Oceanside and Carlsbad are like literally 35 minutes from the border of Mexico that took you into Tijuana. So there was a huge Latinx Mexican community as well in that part of Southern California. It was a good year for me, but I knew that I wanted more, and I knew that I wanted to be back in a zone that was a little bit more comfortable for me. So I transitioned to Atlanta, Georgia. So literally I went across the country, and then I went back across the country, but went all the way south to Georgia, which was also, I'd say somewhat of a culture shock, because the South is just so different than the North. But I say the thing that allowed me to make an easy transition into Atlanta is that because Atlanta was the music mecca at that point, and was I'd say a top 10 city in the country. It was like training wheels versus a culture shock if I were in, middle of nowhere, North Carolina or Kentucky. So for me, making that transition back to a city that had a high concentration of Black folk was really comfortable for me, and a good place for me to land, to go through the next 4 years of my life. I'd say what was really interesting for me is that I always tell people I I lived in Atlanta and I just happened to go to Clark because I got really ingrained in the city, and less ingrained in school. And I want to really clarify that. I was in school every day. I went to all classes, all that stuff. But um, Atlanta's such a unique city. The AUC was such a unique college experience. It was less about me being a Clark dude who was a, a Kappa or an Omega, any of that. I was more in the community. I was hanging around Dungeon Family. I was, hanging around my friends who went to Morehouse or Morris Brown. I was hanging around my high school teammate who played basketball at Georgia Tech. So it was really like it was my coming out and gave me more of an experience of being what's the word I want to use, like assimilated into Atlanta while going to college there. So it was really special. What I'd also say was really special about the HBU experience for me, it got me focused. And, one of the things that I realized later in life is that there's a certain perception out there about going to HBCUs. And I want to sit here and tell everyone on this phone call today is bullshit. Don't believe the shit that they tell you. It's the same thing they tell you about the high school you go to. My sister, as an example, went to a private high school in New York, and I went to Catholic high school. The high school experience was very different from an educational standpoint, but at the same time, when I look at our maturation and our experience and our journey to where we are today, I say we're on equal footing. So it's not about where you go; it's about how you take advantage of the opportunity. And again, when I think about a lot of the people that I went to college with, so many hustlers, so many people that are doing their thing in their own right, whether it's the music industry, whether it's politics, whether it's starting their own wine company. Like there's a lot of really, really strong professionals that have come out of HBCUs. But I say that just to kind of lead to this point. Clark Atlanta got me focused. I grew up with two very specific passions. One was for sport, specifically basketball. The other was for music, specifically hip hop. And for me, I wanted to figure out how I was going to be able to harness those passions into a career, and literally being around people who look like me, being around people who had similar passions, being around people where I could have honest dialogue. It really helped me come to shape and figure out what it was that I was going to be able to do to turn my passions into a lifelong dream. And I sit here 25 or so years removed from college, and I can say that I'm very happy where I'm at in life, and you know I credit where I've landed with the experience I had going to Clark Atlanta University. So I'll pause there and see if there's anything that anybody wants to say or add, or any questions anybody wants to ask.
Yeah, we got a question in the chat that we can go to from Casey Merriweather Hawkins. If you're up here still,
yeah, I'm here.
And go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, hi everyone. So, yeah, my name is Casey Merriweather Hawkins. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina, but I attend Tuskegee University. And I really just had a question about like how to land opportunities. So a little background information. I went to Tuskegee originally to become a vet, and gradually I kind of gained a love for photography over time, passion and creative directing. And so now, it being my senior year, I'm in a place where I'm struggling to like find places that will accept me, especially with my degree in animal science. It's really not for believing in myself. I really do know what I'm capable of, but it does become, somewhat discouraging sometimes when you look at certain job requirements and they want people with these certain majors and these, and they want you to meet these certain requirements. So I'm just wondering, like, how do you go about being granted those opportunities when you don't match up with what they're looking for?
The only thing that and I'll speak directly to that experience because I had a very similar experience. I picked up photography in college, and it went from being something I did on the side as a hobby, and I ended up, making money from it while I was in school and liking it. But it took me a couple years to figure out how to transition that into transition into the professional industry of photography. So I would start by one, letting you know that there's an industry for photography and how it works. And there are several different pockets within that industry, whether you're talking about commercial photography and being in a studio all day where you might be shooting product shots, where you talk about editorial photography. So I would really get familiar with how the industry is structured and understand what those revenue streams are so you can know where to apply your efforts. Second, the only thing that's going to give you an edge in the space, if you don't have the quote unquote credentials of having like a BA coming out of school or something like that, is going to be your literally your portfolio and your network. So I went through the gradual process of working retail so I could be close to the brands that I like to see, or the brands that I loved, and was at the same time taking on finding different ways to professionalize and commercialize my portfolio. And I would be very specific about the type of work that you want to do, and build a very strong portfolio around that type of work. So as opposed to, while, a lot of photographers will be promoting and taking whatever kind of work they can get via Instagram or anything like that, doing $250 shoot here, $500 shoot here, like do what you got to do to keep the lights on, but understand that as you're looking for those more industry driven professional careers, it's going to be about how you present your work and who you know. So I got very specific. I only shot editorial photography, studio product shots, and live events. And those were the three things that I focused on. And that me putting together that portfolio was what landed me my first job as a product photographer at the Whitaker group. And then I was able to kind of move from there with like some additional retail experience as well. So I would say get very specific, research what type of photography you want to do and how that industry works, and then build your portfolio around that, and then just begin to network in those circles and pass your work around. And you're going to have to do a good bit of free work to be able to build that portfolio out, right? Because you have to show people that you're proficient in this and you have your own point of view and your own style. So I would just invest in yourself in that way, and then you'll start to find those opportunities. And it's also understanding a little bit of the underbelly too, because there's other opportunities, like you could be a retoucher in someone's studio, you know what I mean? And that's an opportunity in the industry where you're not necessarily taking photos, but being in a studio or agency style environment is going to prepare you and also get you some of that industry experience to build up your resume. So those are a few things that I've learned over the years that I would say is like a good place to start, specifically for somebody who's coming out of college, doesn't have a photography degree, but wants to make a living out of it.
Okay, thank you.
And anybody else does anybody else have feedback? Question was specific to photography, but at the same time, I think that question applies to all industries, right? Because something that I know we talk a lot about in some of my circles are requirements in general. There aren't degrees for a lot of the things that any of us end up doing in life, right? So how do you take the skill set of how do you take your degree and transfer it into actually obtaining the job that you actually want? And I think for those of you who graduated HBCUs, Antoine, Chris, Frank, or Dave, you guys could probably dig into that some, because that's something that's super important. Like, they hand you a degree and send you out to the world like that degree is going to make you a millionaire. But we all know that's not the case.
Yeah, James, I'll jump in here. And this isn't an indictment on anyone, but I think this is from my personal experience. And I've encountered this from people who are going to HBCUs, people who are going to white universities. I think the common flaw in approach is if you're trying to figure out what you can do with your degree and what you want to do with your degree as you approach graduation, you're kind of late to the party. Like these are things that you need to be thinking about coming into your freshman year. And obviously this, everybody, comes to terms with what it is they want to do at different points. But seriously, by the time you're in your sophomore year, you need to really kind of have an idea. So you're at least dipping your toe in the pool to see if that pool is a pool that, you want to be in long term. Because then at least if it isn't, you got your junior year to kind of spin out of that and spin into what you're trying to get into. I think when people are starting to figure things out and starting to call people, it's funny. I get a million phone calls of people who are from seniors, and like as they're approaching this, going into the second semester of senior year, I'm like thinking to myself, what do you want me to do for you at this point? You have no internship experience, no nothing. It's hard to really do anything when you haven't really, been intentional about figuring out what path was going to be the path that was going to get you to where you wanted to get. So I'll pause there and let somebody else jump in.
Yeah, for sure. Anything is relevant as far as if you're trying to change industries from what your degree is. Anybody who wants to add to that?
Well, I'll chime in. Now say, obviously I went to HBCU, NSU, but my college experience was not like, I always say, it wasn't like a normal college experience that some of you guys may have had or what they show you on TV. I mean, I started out, and I think this is something Sharifa said and kind of what Chris was just touching on is, there's lessons in everything you do. I know sometimes we're sitting back and we waiting for the home run hit, but sometimes, you need to realize to get to the top of the stairs, it starts with one step. So for me, everything I've ever gotten in life was just through work. I came out of high school, I ended up taking a job in a mall, and I was working at a sneaker spot. And, it was just I think sometimes people get jobs like that, even if it's a McDonald's, and you look at it as like, well, I'm just doing this, but eventually I'm trying to be the president or whatever you're trying to do, whatever your ultimate goal is. But a lot of times when you're young, you're coming out of high school, teenager, whatever it may be, sometimes it might take you a little bit of time to understand what you like and what you want to do. But what I will say is I think there's lessons in everything that you do, big or small. And I think it's something to be said about, if you're working at McDonald's and that's not what you want to do, there's somebody in McDonald's that's a millionaire or a billionaire. That they own it. There's managers, there's this. So while I'm on the burgers, I might want to learn about what the guy on the register does. And I might want to learn, you never know what opportunities can come from that. And like for me, taking that job at 16, I've never had a resume in my entire life. I started out with that job in high school, and from learning that, the business of fashion was changing, and I just happened to be there working, and because I was doing, I guess, a good job, because I kept getting promoted. And from those promotions, I was learning more about the business. Like, okay, until eventually the owner of the store asked me to help him with buying, and I didn't know even what he meant at the time, because I was like, I don't have any money. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But basically, he was telling me he wanted me to help him pick out product for the store, and that was after me being there a few years, and then. Once I was invited to that, but there, again, there was lessons on the way, right? I had to learn how to be an employee, and then I learned how to be a key holder. Then I learned how to be assistant manager. Then I learned how to be a manager. So it was one of those things. And before you know it, I was actually helping them buy. So that's how I learned about buying. And then I learned about the people who were selling us the products. So I learned about what they did. And that's how I kind of shaped what I eventually ended up doing, and realized that was fun. At the time, I was going to college still, and I would say, to Chris's point, by the time I got to be sophomore or junior, I realized what I was doing over there, I really, really liked it, and I wanted to do more. And going to school was just a matter of making sure that I had the paperwork. But by then I'd already kind of figured out I wanted to do something in this world, and it was fun, and I was trying to figure out how could I make a living on it. Going to college, I just wanted to make sure I finished to get my degree, but I wasn't, I would go to school literally and go straight to work. I didn't do many of the school parties, and I didn't get to join the frats, any of that. It was like I went to class and I went to work, and I would end up at buying shows during the week, and I had to arrange with my teachers to make up work if I could, or stay back, or take summer classes, whatever I needed to do. But I ended up getting a good degree, but also I was already on the path to what I wanted to do in life. So again, I know that sometimes we want to sit back and we waiting for the home run, or waiting until to get to the top of the mountain, or the top of the stairs. But sometimes you got to look at, it's a lot of lessons of what you're doing right now. The first step, you can't get $1 without a penny, and you can't get the top of the stairs without the first step.
Okay, bro.
Well said, brother Hutch. Well said.
Another gem.
Always. Hey, look, he 2 for 2. We might have to, keep making sure he comes back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. James.
All right, our next question is going to come from a resident favorite. Come on, Chantel.
Chantel.
Pause. I heard I couldn't ask the one I wanted to ask, so I'm not going to ask that.
You can ask whatever question you want to ask.
No. I'm not trying to get in trouble. I came in. They said it's too deep. Okay. So I'm going to sneak one in here. So I missed, I'm not going to do that one. So I missed hearing where everyone went to school if they did go to an HBCU. But if you did not attend the HBCU, panelists, which one would you choose?
If I had to pick one, because I didn't go to one, if I had to pick one today.
Mm-hmm.
Norfolk State, James. Norfolk State.
Don't play yourself. Go to town.
Come on, 757.
My brother. Man,
you know what? Based on the way the world works right now, and me looking at the opportunities and how just picking today, I would go to Howard today.
Wow.
It's situated in the Northeast.
Come on,
facts. It's situated. I'm being honest.
Blue Dot,
Listen, I'm going for my.
Way to go out on a limb, James. You're a sucker.
Sorry, man.
Listen.
What? Man, listen. It has the resources. And if I was the kid, me coming from the projects at that time, knowing what I know now, I would be trying to go to the best offer. So if you Google top HBCUs, the first one that's going to pop up, number one, most searches, it's probably Howard. So pretty serious.
I am the same thing, Chantel. I was going to say the same thing. I would have gone to Howard as well. I actually am mad that I didn't go to HBCU.
Mad.
Because I definitely think I would have, met some amazing and incredible people that I could have got mentored from, or, something. It could have been a really great experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, who else? We got 2 Howards.
I'll jump in here. I'm not trying to be ambiguous with my response, but the interesting thing, like, if you're in high school and you're a high school senior and you say you want to be a lawyer, you want to go to the best law school in the world, and you want to start at whatever the best law school in the world is undergrad, everybody's probably going to direct you to Harvard. It's interesting that nobody really talks about what the HBCUs specialize in. So when you start really looking at the landscape of HBCUs, like these are all schools that have very unique specialties. As an example, Texas Southern is probably the best HBCU with regard to their legal program.
Yeah.
So like that's something that people should know. We
Or
have
PV for nursing.
exactly, and we have schools that are really really great for engineering. We have, like as an example, people don't even know that Clark has a dual degree program with Georgia Tech, which is one of the best engineering schools in the country. You have all of the agricultural schools like a Prairie View, like an A&T, South
Yes,
Carolina.
A&T is one of the best engineering schools in the country now.
Exactly. So I
At
would
least
say
for black.
there's a couple of filters just to kind of get people to start thinking about it differently. Like if you know in high school what it is you want to do, start thinking through that filter and then figuring out which of the HBCUs specialize in that specific area that you want to potentially go into from a professional filter.
Yeah.
The second one I'd say to look at, and was probably, my methodology for how I picked Clark Atlanta. Think about where you want to be geographically, because it's going to be a lot easier. In the way I thought about it was, I figured it's going to be a lot easier to land a job in Atlanta than it would be to land a job if I went to school in Tuskegee, Alabama.
Mhm.
So, that's another thing to think about. Like, where is there going to be industry in terms of proximity to the school you go to that's going to have a good alumni base, a good base to network with, all of those different things. So those are two different ways you could think about it as well. So I know I didn't answer the question of where I would go, but I wanted just to provide a couple of different ways for folks to think about.
No, that's good, because one of the things I found is even when talking to the students that we work with, when it comes to picking a HBCU, the research and the intentionality in terms of where it's located, what it's known for in terms of field of study, that thought isn't always put in when going to HBCUs. It's which is the livest school, and I'm from Virginia, so it was like Hampton. Everybody wanted to go to Hampton, but you didn't really know why. It's just because, most of the parties you went to in high school that you snuck into were on Hampton's campus. And so
I know why the guys wanted to go to Hampton.
exactly, them bougie girls at Hampton. But okay, who else? Who else? Where would you go? Ari, you can you can pick one. They slide y'all in there.
Follow James because he's like the smartest person I know. So I'm
man.
going wherever he's going. You know what I mean?
Go to. You'll fit right. You'll fit right in that thing.
I'm from Philly, so like DC seems fitting.
One more.
You should have went to
one more
Cheney,
thing that
Ari.
I'll to Chantel. Houston has a nice.
Went to Cheney.
Houston got a nice batch of HBCUs around it. Yeah, there's a lot to choose from in that part of the world, in that part of the country. I'm sorry.
But this is my next question with it. Did everyone else go? I really am curious to see where you would go if you didn't go.
Nah, I didn't go, but I was gonna pick Howard as well. And it was really for
Come on, pal.
Man, come on. I mean, hold on. So I was in the military. And one of the reasons why I really picked Virginia, it was for my job when I was in electronics, but it was also because of location, because I was close to New York, because I'm from New York. So, and what I know now about DC, for what I did in electronics, I would still go down to Howard because DC down there with all the contracting, I would be there.
Yeah.
So that's what I look at.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chantel. What's the second part?
So, for those who attended HBCUs, is there any validity to the myth that HBCUs are horrible with admin? Do you feel like that you experienced that? Because that's kind of like the floating thing. I've experienced a couple in trying to get.
What was the word you used? Horrible with what?
Admin, basic admin, admission, getting a hold of financial aid, dealing with transcripts and recovering transcripts. I know Morris
That's a
Brown.
deep question.
Say it again.
Was that the deep question?
No, I know. I know the deep question was, how the heck are these HBCUs getting the funding that supposedly went to them? Like, where does it go? How is it getting? But there's no admin on this call, so.
Word.
But do you, with those who attended, and again, this is not to bash because I am completely for HBCUs, but you kind of hear that floating around. And I just wanted to just throw it out there, devil's advocate, like, is there any validity to that?
Let me, I didn't go to an HBCU, but this is where I'm about to put my business hat on. I have the pleasure of serving on a board with Chris for SWAC. And I could say we serve under Charles, who oversees a lot of the things that happen there. And I think HBCUs in the past has gotten a bad rap for not managing things the right way and not doing a lot of the things the right way. But what I can say, and I'll let Chris get in here because he can articulate it a lot better than me, because he's the person who actually pulled me in. Charles, one of the things that I could say he done is, Charles is the only leader who oversees a conference that took it upon himself to create an advisory council of people who are pretty damn sharp in the industries that they're in to help him serve the HBCUs that he needs to counsel and lead. So I think some of those myths are true, but I think we're starting to see work done now to dispel some of that stuff. And I can't speak about what happened in the past, but I can speak about some of the work that we're doing today to help those, 9 schools, Chris? And soon to be 11 or 12. But currently 9 schools, man, take COVID out of it, and we would have a lot of things going right now that people around the world would be paying attention to.
Yeah. Hey, so I'll jump in real quick. So I want to answer your question, Chantel, before I just kind of add on to what James was saying. My feedback is about 25 years old, so I can't speak to what the process looks like today. But I'll swear to you, it's funny. I sat on I hosted a guest speaker earlier this week who works in the legislative field, and one of the topics we talked about was voter suppression. And the reason I bring that up is because when I think about like these crazy long lines we've seen in certain southern states that have been a tool for those certain state governments to suppress people from voting. That's what it felt like when I first got to Clark, when I was sitting in this hot ass gym, literally for like hours. Luckily I was slick enough to figure out how to skip the line because it was crazy and it was super frustrating, and you saw people really losing their wits with it. I hope to God that things have been, that things have evolved and things have become a little bit more digital now, especially with technology, but I can't speak to that.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Did that line go down the hill, down the University Homes in the middle of the project?
I'm sure it did. It definitely was out the door, Frankie. It was out the door. Yeah. This is August in Atlanta with no AC.
In the middle of the West Side.
Exactly. But speaking to what James was just talking about, yeah, we have the pleasure of serving on an advisory board under Dr. Charles McClellan, who is the commissioner for the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And I can tell you that it's been an enjoyable experience for me. And, I don't want to speak for James, but, I would assume it's the same for him. The reason it's been enjoyable because it was a pioneering move. Him having the gumption, Charles having the gumption to establish an advisory board of industry peers across multiple disciplines, to leverage as thought partners, to ensure that things like the question you're asking are thought through. All of the universities within the SWAC organization.
That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah, it's been truly encouraging, And just as one, just call out, and you can Google it and find it. One of the things that was really good hearing this week was that the SWAC basically made the decision to jump out there and push all of their fall sports to spring. While everyone else, including the NCAA D1 head office, really not having a consistent message and having an aligned point of view, leaving it kind of to the conferences to do their own thing. That's not what you should be doing, especially when it's been very obvious that, but the NCAA has basically been taking full advantage of free student athlete, what's the word I want to use? Free student athlete labor to rake in billions of dollars. Like, it was good to see once in a blue moon that the Black Conference did what was right and had the student athletes prioritize in the decision that they made. So it's just one example, and you can find articles about that.
Yeah. And to jumping behind Chris, and to Charles's credit, got the credit for it. Like, he received a lot of support on national sports news around the decision he's making. And once again, and I will say the same thing. I've had an amazing experience serving under Chris, Charles, and Brian's leadership, and I hope to continue on this advisory committee for years to come. And
I guess
yes, I'm plugging SWAC. Yes, all 9 schools. That's my plug. Pick any of them. Prairie View, anyone. SWAC.
Hey, I was gonna say I'll give my experience. It's not too much. It's a little bit more closer. I graduated in 2013. I was 2009 to 2013. So we still getting up there. I still can't believe I started undergrad 10 years ago. But and then I would like to toss it to our current students as well to answer this question. From my experience in terms of dealing with admin, it was more so about, it taught me how to handle my business.
Yeah.
So it taught me how to be prepared. It taught me how to make sure my paperwork was in line. And I think we understand that there is a little bit of things that are under resourced, right? So if you got a financial aid office that's serving, at Winston we had 5,500 students, but we floated between 5,500 and 6,000 students. So if you had a financial aid office of, let's say, 10 people, that lets you know how many students per person per se are dealing with, financial aid, right? And then you talk about that this is still a paper system for a lot of people. It leads itself to having some inefficiencies. But what I found is that I could counteract that. The process doesn't change year to year, barring you having any changes in your family situation, with your FAFSA and things like that. Like, the process is the exact same. So if by your sophomore year you ain't figured out how to work with financial aid, and you ain't built no relationships with somebody in financial aid or the registrar or whoever it is, then you're just not handling your business. Like I say it, and I say that because it's like anything else in life. Like, yeah, the lines are long. Yeah, it sucks when you get back on campus. And I spent many hours sitting in Dillard Auditorium watching reruns of Martin, waiting for my number to be called. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they still do that, but that's what it was when we was there. You had to wait in Dillard Auditorium. You had a ticket with your number on it. You had to wait for your number to be called, and they had the same Martin reruns on. But when you found that your time is much more productive at the table, if you end up running into somebody that you know, and if you already got your paperwork in line, that's going to save you some time. So I mean, there are inefficiencies built into the process, especially seeing like some other family members that went to different schools. But at the same time, like I said, if you're over prepared, you could still maneuver the system as if you would do anything else. Like I said, it's just like going to the DMV or to the post office or anything like that. But the only difference is you got the opportunity to have a personal relationship with the person that's serving you as well.
Thank you.
I mean, I think on a positive note, like Dave just said, it kind of it hardens you. I think it's valid what people are still saying, because I have a cousin that goes to FAM, and it's still the same, but it hardens you. It makes you, it teaches you how to navigate, with people that aren't necessarily, because you got to remember, these same people, half the time they don't even want to be there, so half of the time they don't even want to be there. So, you know, just learning to deal with these type of people. And, you know, one thing my pops always taught me was just never take no for an answer. So, you know, if one person can't do it, somebody can do it. You know, somebody can make it happen. So, you know, like Dave said, just finding somebody, developing relationships, you know, all of these things are things that can apply to real life, real world, you know, situations. So that I think it's I won't say it's necessary, but you know, it definitely, it's a light haze,
Mm.
little light
Hey,
haze. But
and I'm gonna say this to y'all, and then I'm out. I got the best HBCU that I would have attended, Hillman College.
We know you went to a PWI because that's not a
That's
real
okay.
one.
We're not
So
gonna
we
talk
know
about that. I
you
was
know what
on a
I'm saying?
plantation. We're not gonna talk about that. But I would go to Hillman College, different world. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Hillman.
There is one thing.
Can't.
There's one thing I want.
Go for.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to jump in and just. I'd be remiss if I didn't address this because I was thinking about what Kevin said. So I want to kind of just go back and talk about Harlem to Oceanside to Atlanta. 1 year to junior college around a bunch of white folks definitely did not shape or prepare me to be thrusted into white corporate America. So I'd say if there's one thing that's a disadvantage to going to an HBCU, disadvantage is the wrong word. So sorry that I use that word. One opportunity that we need to figure out, and why I believe that internships are super important, is because if you're coming from the hood and you go to an HBCU where you're dealing with you're around a mix of people from the hood, people who grew up in middle class households, and then you have a just by the sheer number of what our population looks like, you'll have a small percentage of people who come from affluent backgrounds, but everybody looks like you. It doesn't prepare you for anything you're going to deal with when you transition into corporate America. That shit is a mental, just a mental minefield. And, it's that's something that you know what, James, that's something we need to actually really key in on with Charles. It's one thing for us going and having, these sessions where we're talking to the kids, but there needs to be a programmed approach to making sure these kids are prepared. Because man, it's like you're not prepared. It's a stark contrast going from one to the other.
I'd push back slightly against that. I'd push back only in saying that it depends on how you treat your experience at the HBCU. If you're super involved, and I mean, not to say that people come in ready to be super involved, but if you're involved the way you should be, you can get the necessary experiences. At least that was my experience. And if you paid attention, right? Like one of the things that we provided at Winston, like as your freshman year, is they had simple things like an etiquette class to teach you how to eat in a formal dining setting. And it was a part of your freshman colloquium that every freshman was required to take. And you know what I mean? There was, with career services being available to you and tapping into that office, also getting involved with different campus organizations and other nationally affiliated organizations. I was a part of Pi Sigma Epsilon professional fraternity, which was like a marketing and sales fraternity. So when you go to your conferences and different meetups with people from different schools, you're starting to deal with outside populations. So I think you can get that. It's not readily available to you necessarily, and I think that being able to be in that environment where you're nurtured and you're affirmed before you enter that environment where you have to be able to move in those waters is very, very necessary and empowering. But you do have to seek out those opportunities that allow for you to sharpen those skills, and they're not going to be as readily available because you're not in class with white people. You're not, you may have a white professor or two that you got to deal with. You may have your white administrator here and there that you got to deal with, but to Chris's point, it is kind of insular in that way. But I think if you're matriculating through the process the right way, it can still prepare you properly. And internships, to your point, great thing, campus organizations, all of those things are what prepare you for stepping out into the real world. And I mean, yeah, like nothing prepared. Like by the time as student body president, like I was managing an organization of 30 people with $150,000 budget, which is like an experience that I don't think that very few people that went to any institution have, right? So if you've done the work and you stay tapped in and you push and take your interest to the next level and find organizations or form organizations with your interests, you can get those professional development skills that can help you navigate that corporate environment, I think.
I think what Chris is talking about, Dave, is
James, hold up, James. Let me jump in. Dave, all good call outs, and I want to just be really, really specific. The assimilation piece is one element of being prepared for what happens when you transition into corporate America. And the polish, yeah, that's going to come from mentorship. That's going to come from a number of different things. But more importantly, what you just shared was being intentional about going out and getting the tools. I want to be very, very specific though. When you transition from your neighborhood to HBCU, not a lot really changes. It's your comfort zone. What you're not prepared for when you transition into corporate America are the micro and macro aggressions, the systemic racism that's at the very core and belly of that shit. That's the shit I'm talking about you're not prepared for. You don't even see the shit coming.
Yes.
You don't even see it fucking coming. It smacks you in the face. And that takes a whole nother level of preparation. And you can't, there's no school to go to figure that out.
No.
I agree.
It's like walking into war and you think you're fighting the army in front of you. You don't realize there's snipers out there and landmines. And walking in.
And you can go into that and have a Purple Heart at the same time.
And Sharifa, I think I drowned you out twice. You were about to say something. Go ahead, Sharifa.
I mean, Dave, I hear you, but I could definitely give you a prime example. Like I started a company, right? And I was very entrepreneurial when we first started. And then we sold the company and it became corporate very quickly. And it was like a shock to me. And then it was like all the things that I knew, they basically said, oh no, you don't know enough. And they hired someone above. You're not ready for all of that stuff that comes, right? And you're not ready for the racism. You're not ready for the nepotism. You're not ready for any of it. And it is a shock value that, like, I mean, I agree with Chris. It's like when you leave it's like if you leave from Brooklyn to go to Queens, you're in the same element. But if you leave to go from Brooklyn to, let's just say, Upper East Side, it's a totally different element. And you have to now you have to become a chameleon, like you have to blend in some way. It's a whole nother thing. And I definitely believe with all the kids that I've seen come up through, like who interviews with me, and it's a difference, right? If someone comes and interviews with me, I can see and I can relate to them. If they're interviewing with someone else, it's a different understanding. And they see through everything. No matter how smart you are, you're not smart enough. It's like you have to do double the work to be proven that you are, you know? So I get where you're coming from, but I agree with Chris 1,000% because it happened to me. And I can only explain to you because until it happens to you, thank God it did not, you wouldn't understand.
Oh no, I mean I definitely dealt with it, but I'm saying I think being in that HBCU environment gave me the stomach for it, like for me personally. But to Chris's point, like I said, I went out and made sure I had those experiences. Like I saw how state politics was affecting how they changed the requirements for state politics to affect the funding of the HBCUs in North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? All the way to the point where like they almost shut down ECSU a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? But that's, like I said, that's a different level of exposure and understanding how things work. And I understand that the average student probably doesn't have that experience as well, but I've definitely experienced and know.
That was a good one,
but
though.
I want to.
Wait,
yeah,
I want to add something to that.
Oh, go ahead, Phil.
But
And I think that maybe the distinction is when you get hired by a company and it's somebody who doesn't necessarily look like you in a corporate environment, that people don't look like you and you're not able to relate to it due to your background of where you came from and where you went to school, and you come in there and you think, oh, now I'm part of this team. And there is, to James' point, people are shooting at you, but people are shooting at you inside the job, and it's not friendly fire. And you don't, there is nothing that can get you ready for that outside of being in the middle of that.
Yeah, man, I compare, I think my childhood has been well documented. I compare corporate America to going to war in the hood every day. It's the same thought process. You don't know, the people closest to you could be trying to snipe you. People pull you in, they bait you, they become friends with you to try to clip you. People use your strengths against you. Like, you have to be mindful of all these things and still figure out the way to win the game. So to Chris's, the way Chris led in, it is very important for us to have a conversation about it, because trying to get kids, specifically who've come from Black neighborhoods into HBCUs, to go into white organizations, unless America changes, and we in the middle of trying to change it now, which we all know, but we're not there yet. But Chris, to your earlier point, that's something that we definitely got to drill down on through SWAC, through free game. We just got to collectively use all of our voices to try to help level set the conversation.
Nah, this is great dialogue. I'd love to get some of our current students to chime in. Like, do y'all feel like you're prepared currently to enter into a all-white environment, or through the experience that you have thus far? Or like, have you experienced, what is your experience been in dealing with white people and coming from an HBCU, whether it's in various circumstances, whether it's work related or, you know, dealing with, you know what I mean? Just give us your perspective as current students at HBCUs and help us round it.
I constantly have this debate with my dad about just being prepared for corporate America. I always say, you know, that there's a change in, I guess, what the typical corporate America person would look like when it comes to, you know, people our age getting tattoos, having ear piercings and things like that. I always have that argument that, you know, maybe it's a different generation. So I guess I was going to ask, does that still exist? Like, does the stigma of a corporate America being like, you know, the suit and tie, no tattoos plain, does that still exist?
Well, I think some organizations are accepting of it, but at the same time, they're still shooting at you. Like, you work with us, right? So just so everybody know, Jeff's on our team, and it's you know, you're walking into HBCU workplace, right? But in the real white led workforce, they're okay with some of those things, but they're still judging you, if that makes sense. So they'll rock you to sleep and make you think it's okay, then burn you for it later. If that makes sense.
And it's a numbers game. Yeah. Still 90%
Can everybody go on mute? Just not talking, please. Dave, do we got everybody blocked out? That shouldn't even have popped in.
Yeah.
Go for it, Ari. My apologies.
Well, I was just saying it's numbers. You know, it's a sheer numbers game too, right? You walk into corporate America, it's going to be 90% not people of color. So, like, forget the shooting and all that accuracy, but it's also, when you look to your left and your right, you're not going to see people that look like you in the same way. And yes, it's more relaxed, and in the fashion business, you see people with tattoos and piercings and all that good stuff, but it's not changing the management structure yet, or changing the bodies that are in there just yet. And the mentalities are old and systemic, to Chris's point. So, you know, a little ink here and there on some guys that feel liberal or wear, you know, hats to work now, it still doesn't change like a mentality that's existed for 40, 50, 60, 80 years in corporate America.
Hey, I sat in on a tech conversation with a famous musician who's in tech, and he said that he does not know any intelligent African Americans on a call, not knowing who was on the call.
Holy shit.
Okay, and that happened last week. Okay, and he's probably in his late 30s, early 40s.
Did somebody check him, Pell?
No.
How
So
Oh, you got to put it on blast now.
no, hold on. So the people who were hosting it, they went silent, and it was addressed to them, and they said nothing. So the thing is, some people, even with what's going on, they feel that they still come out their mouths, you know, and it's and I think that that's just how he is in conversation. Like, it's okay to say this because he got in trouble for something like that before, talking about Asian people.
Who's he? Say the name.
I'm not getting into the who's he.
It's not the same.
Public, pal.
Nah, we can get into the who. It's not public. It was in a closed environment.
TMZ.
You know, but I just brought that up to say that it still happens despite all of the things that have happened recently with the passing of Mr. Floyd. People, you know, they put up a black square. You think that everybody's hunky-dory and they cool with you. That ain't it. There's still microaggressions that are continuing. So just be mindful going into a workplace that the person who's smiling in your face, you know what, even better? Ralph said this. He said there's three types of racists. You have the person who does not want you to exist. Then you have the other person he's cool with you existing, but he does not want you to live around him. Right? Then the other one is, and this is more so the liberal, who is, you can exist, you can even date my sister. I'll mess with you, whatever, but I never want you to get ahead of me in line.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you say that, pal. And if you're done, I'll share with you a quick story.
Yeah.
When I first moved to the South from Pittsburgh, I met a real estate agent, and he ultimately helped me get my first location. Now, I mean, I got screwed when I look back, right? I had to pay 3 months rent in advance, plus 2 month rent on the back end, plus all this, all that. But something he said to me was, "We work together, but we don't play together." And I'll always remember that. And that's here in Charlotte when I first got here. And the crazy part about it is I'm from the projects, so I'm thinking to myself, that's probably accurate. I'd rather you be upfront and tell me that than me get blinded by it. And I've never forgot that.
No, that's good. Anybody else got anything to chime in?
I think in general it's just kind of tiring, man, because you don't know how to approach it. Like I've worked in engineering firms, and you know maybe 100 people, and out of those 100, there's maybe 5 black. So it's like you don't know how to maneuver. You don't know who to talk to. You don't know who you can trust. You know they'll have company outings, and you're around those people, but they'll take that personally and hold it against you, you know, and then something else happens that's actually related to work, and now they bring that up as well as, you know, what happened in the past, and they're just, you know, just that disdain that they've kind of grown, you know, in regard to you. So it's honestly just tiring, man, like, because like you say, you don't know who to trust. You don't know which way to go. You don't know who to talk to. You know, it's hard to find other black people to open up to, because then you have some of the black people that have been conditioned, you know, working in corporate for 20 plus years, and they've been conditioned to just, you know, be just like just like those other people, you know. So it's definitely, I don't think any black student exposed to it in some type of capacity. I don't think anybody's prepared for that. It's some sharks out there. There's some real sharks out there that's been doing it for 20 plus years. So I definitely think it's very important that these types of structures and programs and insight are brought to our high schools, just so kids can know what's out there. You know, it's not sweet. I mean, you hear that in life in general, that once you graduate, it's gonna get tough, but it's nothing, man. Man, it's some sharks out there. So
Definitely. So for James and Chris, Sharifa, Frank, like, what are some of the strategies for navigating those waters?
For me, it's like one time I already know, like, as long as you know, you're never surprised, right? So you're always looking out for something. It's unfortunate that that's the way we have to move, but at the end of the day, as long as you make yourself aware and you know what's happening around you, you don't need to change yourself for anyone, right? You just need to get the job done. And also just do your own thing. It's probably the best thing.
I think for me, I had a bit of a different experience. For me to kind of understand it, I had to remove myself, just to kind of get like, a helicopter view of what was going on. You know what I mean? And it may have been a decision that would have been, I think it was for the best. But taking full responsibility and accountability for what I thought was the best decision at the time, it made me see more, because my head was down just working on projects, trying to go through what's the next best thing I can do, what would keep me going, what would keep me rising in this structure, in this corporate structure. And for me, I think leaving and taking time for myself and kind of seeing what I could have did differently, what they should have done differently, and not blaming anyone, but understanding the structure. And I think, having your head down and trying to get this mentorship and trying to navigate through that whole matrix was definitely the most difficult thing. I think, 90% of my job was doing that. 10% was what I already knew and what I loved, So, I mean, I think coming out of the HBCU and going into that, that environment, and like Chris said, it was just a totally different thing. Even though I interned at Nike, even in 2006, 2007, when I was interning, it was just a different, it was just a whole different thing from where, Atlanta brought me, but really getting into it, again, I think my approach was a little bit different, and coming from, a boutique specialty, with friends that, we navigated different, even that was different, the boutique world is just different, from Vegas to shows, we just have fun, so even that was different. And even having to tell stories and storytelling on, 100% sell through, this is our livelihood again. So, it was just a different way. Like anything that I made when I had my career at Jordan, I wanted 100% sell through because that's all I was used to, so it's a different way. It was a totally different story than a lot of people kind of experience. But again, I think some of the things they ask for in the boardroom and they want to put on like mood boards are different than when you actually get into the structure.
Yeah, hey, I'll jump in real quick. I got to jump off in a second. I'm making.
Don't jump off before I ask this one question. I need to hear something. Okay.
All right, I'll make my advice pretty simple and to the point. If you don't like games, you better start liking games. And what I mean by that is you don't got to start out with the ultimate game that corporate America is. You don't need to start your training there. I say start playing Connect Four. Figure out the moves on that board first, because it's a little straightforward, a little bit more straight to the point. It's pretty practical. Once you've mastered that game, then you graduate to chess, because that's what this shit is. So as an entry point in going to corporate America, if you know how to play Connect Four, you'll be able to navigate a bit. But as you start to ascend up, if you don't know how to play chess, forget about it. So if you're sitting in your dorm, go to Target, go to Walmart, invest in a Connect 4 game, and just start playing with your dorm mate, your friends, and get that. And if you feel like it's too novice for you, then graduate to chess, because you're going to need it later in life.
That is the soundbite.
Yo, for real.
So
Can I? Oh, go ahead.
No, I said I would chime in and say, master your emotions. I spent a lot of time, learning who you are, and figure out how to master your emotion. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean that you can't be emotional. We're human, but I would say trying to be more in control, because you can't control everything that happens to you. You can't control everything that's said to you. You only control how you feel about it. So when it comes to going into that corporate world or a job or anywhere, at the end of the day, you have to decide what your goal is first. And once you establish what your goal is, if you go, all right, I want to be at this company and I want to be here for a long time, or maybe become the president or whatever your goal is, and you're going to be there, there's going to be some shit you got to deal with. So to Chris's point, right, it's the chess, mastering that chess. But understand what you're there for. You're there to be a thief. That's what you're there for. You're there to steal. You're stealing knowledge. You're stealing things that's going to help you grow. And if that's the ultimate goal, then just keep that in mind. Even if that's not the ultimate goal, you're still there to steal. You're a thief. You're there to steal knowledge. So some of these things that you may hear that may rub you wrong, we're human. We might feel a certain kind of way about it, but if you master your emotion, you know what your ultimate goal is. That'll help you navigate. And once you get past it and get to the place you want to be, then you'll be able to affect some of the changes that you may want to see in the company. But you got to have a seat at that table in order to do that.
Hey, I don't want
to go. Pal, 1 second. Let's let Chantel ask her questions. Right. Chris can run, and then we'll go with Pal. But I love this dialogue.
Yeah. So thank y'all for that. And I know I'm jumping around because I should be asking in the chat, but while I have certain people on here, so I work with teenagers in the Third Ward area in Houston. And we have an internship, Jumpstart internship, where I teach and train in professional development, leadership development, and spiritual development, mindfulness, holistic living, and whatnot. And when we're talking about essentially being able to switch between registers in terms of how you carry yourself, in terms of your appearance, but also knowledge of just how systems work and how, whether it's boardroom, whether it's, at a deal or whatever, or just stepping outside of your area, which for them is Third Ward. So we know we have to teach that. My question is, do you feel like, and this is for the students as well, do you feel like it would be advantageous to have maybe an adjunct course or something that deals with code switching? We call it code switching and we laugh about it as African Americans, like, yo, we gotta know how to talk to the white people, and we gotta know how to talk. But essentially, just switching registers in conversation, because I teach our kids all the time, I will punch you in the face if you ever are ashamed of where you come from and you're ashamed of Third Ward. But I do need you to be able to switch registers to go from slang and formal or informal to formal, not because you're trying to step and fetch it and assimilate, but this is the world we live in, period. Fair or unfair, or whatever, it is what it is. So because we know that, and that it is such a big deal, whether you're in corporate America or not, I'm in nonprofit. So if it's that important, do you feel like it would be something that would be good to share on the college level? I know it's good to share in the high school. I even start with my own son, he's 10. Or is that like, do you feel like that would be more, especially for millennials, like, that's teaching me how to assimilate and step and fetch it.
I could jump on that one real quick. I think it's a really good question, and I think back to what Dave was talking about earlier. Again, I like to boil things down and just kind of simplify them, but I think there's so. Firstly, I want to answer your question. I don't know if you need a class for it or not, but what I can say is that, and I can only speak from my perspective. There's two. There's only one way you should carry yourself in a professional environment, and that's carry yourself professional. So however you get those tools, whether it's, to Dave's point earlier, if there's etiquette classes, for me it was an internship and experience. I think that just is going to come by people just being intentional to understand what it means to be professional. But I want to clarify that as well. I am not a fan of assimilation. I am not a fan of code switching. I am not a fan of unauthentic behavior, but I am a fan of being professional. I can sit here and tell you, I have always refused to not be myself. Me not being me not assimilating, but remaining myself was just me being reclusive. I just always would sit back and just let everybody talk. And if I had something important to say, I say it. That's authentic to me because that's who I am. But like being authentic, that's not an option. And we have to work ourselves out of that kind of conditioning because at the end of the day, I question what value you're bringing to whatever industry you're in if you're being brought in because you have a certain or specific point of view that's pointed at a very specific consumer group. That's value. When that gets watered down, like what else what are you bringing? Like why do they need you anymore? So I just want to make sure people understand there's an expectation. I lead a number of people. Anybody who's not professional, they can't work on my team. So that's the cost of entry. You got to be professional. But as soon as you basically somebody, I don't even recognize who you are, I can't have you around me either. Because that means I don't know what you're doing when you with Joe Schmo and them over there. So I hope that helped.
No, that does.
No, that's a great point of professionalism versus cultural competency.
Yeah,
That's
I
an
wanted to touch
amazing
on that
call
too,
out.
Dave.
Yeah, that's right.
I got to take off, folks. It was enjoyable. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Chris.
Peace.
All right.
Peace, Chris. Thanks, Chris. Now, that was powerful for me to hear just listening to that. And as I hear everybody else talk about their testimonials and experience in the corporate world, I spent a number of years working in the corporate beverage industry, and hearing everyone talk about your identity and navigating and understanding the rules of engagement in corporate America and how that affects you. Transitioning now into the position I have now, I do see the effects of my experience in the corporate world. Some of the good things is some of the skill sets I've learned, some of the ways that I can navigate and understand, different things that relate to my actual performance on the job. Have been skills that I've picked up working in, super structured environments where they give you tons of resources and plans on how to do project A or B, right? But on the other side, from a cultural aspect and the business acumen aspect, how you get to yes and how your soft skills are developed and the rules of engagement, I'm speaking out loud, I struggle with kind of surgically removing the parts that I kind of picked up and don't need anymore, and understanding who I was before I entered that environment, right? kind of one of the reasons why I changed professions was going back to childhood ambitions and childhood dreams to kind of center me and kind of start from there. Because my experience in the corporate world was so kind of, I guess, unnerving, or it sent me in a direction to where I had to kind of refocus. And so I guess, Jeff, back to your question too, like the effects of strategies and things like that, that's something that I experienced, and I'm still dealing with it right now.
Definitely. Anybody else? Anybody else want to add to that?
No,
Or while
man,
we're on this,
no, it's hell of it's amazing commentary, man. I'm sitting back, just this is just a hell of a conversation.
Yeah, I wanted and it's gonna touch on what the point that I wanted to make before, but you also have to know who you playing to, because regardless of whatever position or company you're trying to go to, you're still dealing with individuals at every step. You're dealing with people, whether it's the HR person, whoever. So you got to remember, there's a decision maker. There's somebody who may be a saboteur that doesn't want you in there. Just got to know who these people are, and you have to play to them. You have to know that you're playing to a person. You have to, as much as Hutch said, you got to know about yourself. You got to know about that other person too. You got to know about that company, but really you got to know about this individual as much as you can. When you get to learn somebody and you find out these little things about them, play to that. They got kids, they got this, they got that. And that's not necessarily code switching. That's just being a human. That's just being an individual. One of the things that James also brought up in the beginning was school teaches a lot of people how to get jobs. Gotta play this like you're trying to create jobs, because then you start thinking like the person who's gonna hire you. If you can be in his shoes and you can understand the ROI that he wants to get out of his investment, which is you who's sitting across the table from him, you're gonna play the game different. You're gonna look at him different, and you're gonna talk to him different, and you're gonna have questions for him to make sure that he understands your value when you're sitting across from him.
Pell, very good points. And as we're going, a good friend of mine sent me a book that hits on these topics. It's called Striving While Black. I'm sorry. Check it out when you get a second. It's on Amazon. You could grab it, but it provides a lot of context also.
Striving While Black.
Striving While Black.
I just dropped it in the chat. Cool. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. It's 9:00. We normally go till 9 or 9:30, but before we do start to wrap, I want to open the floor back up to Carissa and Cameron to see if there are any direct questions that you guys have, and give you guys the opportunity to ask anything directly. Where there's, it's been a really good dialogue. It's been really well-rounded dialogue, but I want to open the floor back up, wrap you guys back into the conversation, and see if there's anything you guys want to ask specifically.
I honestly don't have any questions. I'm just sitting here just soaking it all in. There's a lot of good knowledge being put out from all the individuals that basically go through this every day. So I'm just here just soaking it all in, taking notes, and just listening.
Right. I'm listening in, taking it all in. I mean, this is amazing like information that's being handed to us. So I'm listening. All ears.
Jeff, you got anything, bro?
No. I think just the reality of corporate America is not what we think it is. We think, as millennials, that the world is changing, and it changes rapidly. But I mean, things over time, it takes, time for a lot of these things to change. And so you got to play the game until you run in the game. So, I mean, that's kind of what I got from it.
No, man. I don't have much else to add, man. I think that was a very rich conversation. I don't think for once I'm without words. I think Antoine.
Yeah, nah, it's sober. It's very sober in the Zoom room right now. Like this is it right here.
Having the professionals that we got on with, you know, this is where having such a great group of friends around you, Sharifa, Antoine, Pale, Ari, Chris jumping in, and everybody jumping in, Frank giving all of his context. It's such rich information, and this is what makes the platform so valuable, because tons of people can't see this, but this is one that we're going to probably recap the hell out of, because so many great things were said. So I'm completely comfortable with calling it a night unless anyone else needs anything. I'm in a space where it's like,
Yo, I just want to say one last thing. Sorry. There's this book that I read a while ago called The Spook Who Sat by the Door. The name alone is self-explanatory. It was banned in the United States. It was by an author who's from the US. It turned into a movie, which was also banned, right? But it was about just a person who was in the military, who got all this knowledge, and then he brought it to the hood and started a revolution. All that to say is, all y'all that are going to college right now, y'all are the future again. Y'all the ones who are in the streets protesting, and y'all the ones that's making change. This is not to sound like this is being in corporate America is going to be the end all be all, and it's going to be hell, and like your future is supposed to be looking daunting. It's not that. Y'all are the ones who are going to program change at the end of the day, because y'all ain't having it. Y'all ain't. You got to remember that. Like, you got power, you got strength in numbers. And when y'all say that it ain't going down, you got to remember, you got to be financially responsible together. Put your money where your mouth is.
I agree. I also want to say that you guys got a voice. You guys are leaders, right? You're able to change what's going on now. Look at all the stuff that we've been able to change. So I want all of you guys going to college to get out there, vote, make sure you do the right thing, because at the end of the day, it's for your future as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is one of the ones where I could say I'll say it again, man. I'm honored. I'm honored to be in the presence of so many amazing people. People ask me all the time how I keep my sanity, how I'm able to stay focused, how I'm able to do whatever it is that people watch me do or think I do. It's by being able to surround myself with people who hold themselves to a very high standard, don't tolerate bullshit, and are willing to bust their ass and work for what they want, and continue to fight for what they have. So I thank all of y'all for investing y'all time. Again, y'all killed it today. We're going to
this is easily the best one that we've had. Easily the best free game that we've had, yo. So shout out to y'all.
All of you will be featured on a social media site near you. We're going to recap the hell out of this, because people need to hear these sound bites and clips, because there were so many of them.
Yeah, I honestly feel like free game was an understatement.
That's something we got to get our fellow, classmates and stuff involved in as well. Like something that we can get going while, we'll be on campus.
Definitely, man. Definitely. We working on figuring out how to scale this up, and we doing some work not only with James's, affiliation with SWAC, but just in general trying to figure out, what's the best way to align our community work with HBCUs and college students. And this ain't the last time y'all gonna see us collaborate with HBCU Drip. They're gonna be hopefully hosting some programs on their own across our community platforms, touching all markets. Put a little pressure on them in front of the folks right now. But we're looking forward to continue working with y'all, man. Thank you everybody for coming out tonight, man, and y'all have a great night.
Blessings.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Y'all be easy.